I had a phone call with somebody today. I did a little interview with him. His name's Joseph A. Camp. Some of you might know him from Twitter. He's a guy, he got arrested. He did some prison time for hacking his university website and changing some of the grades and taking stuff from their database and whatnot. But he had some things to say about the Twitter trollicast that's going on, as well as the Russell League and many of those people who got suspended. So let's go ahead and cut to that interview. Back in July, Stanford University's network was breached by a hacker who called himself Agent 47, who we now know as Larry Patterson. He also admitted hacking several different major corporations and posted some of the information he found on Pastebin, which is a sort of a text Dropbox for hackers. Now Larry's sitting in jail, and I noticed you've covered a lot of this on your website. What first brought Larry's case to your attention, and do you feel sympathetic towards his cause?
I'm trying to remain as neutral as possible, but I am starting to feel more sympathetic towards his cause. He came to my attention because I have a hobby, I guess,
right,
of following the world in the hacking world. And I was contacted by an individual who had claimed to be the person responsible for Agent 47's arrest. I didn't think anything of it until I actually decided to just contact him and see what he was doing. Published the first interview with him and ended up with huge accolades from it, and it kind of spurred from there.
So he got caught because he bragged about it on Twitter, right?
Yeah. From all of the court reports and the FBI reports, it shows that he was bragging about it on Twitter, and signing his name to all of the bumps as Agent 47, and then they just backtraced the IP address to his home address.
Wow. Okay. So I've noticed a small trend on Twitter. There's been a large number of Twitter accounts similar to Agent 47's that have been suspended simply because they're SOC accounts and they were logged with the same IP address as another account, even if that IP address is from a shared VPN. Is it possible that he was using some sort of VPN with somebody else, or did he admit this to the authorities in person, or they just backtraced it to his IP address?
He was using Comcast cable for his internet service. He was using a VPN based out of Canada, but at times was lazy and just never booted up the VPN and would just sign in under his Comcast IP address.
Oh, wow. So he got lazy. He got a little sloppy with his work.
Right. So when the feds subpoenaed the IP addresses for the accounts related to him, Agent 47, the OXOOXOO account, half of the numbers came back as a legitimate IP address.
Oh, wow. Well, a lot of these people getting suspended on Twitter right now, I've known them as being, notorious internet trolls. They've been associated with the Russell League or anonymous, but people who notice these mass suspensions, they've coined the term trollicast, which is a play on words between troll and Holocaust. I mean, all these people are getting banned. How do you feel about internet regulation and censorship? Is this right for Twitter to crack down on anonymity and free speech?
Twitter is a privately owned company, and as a privately owned company, they have their own rights to be able to regulate the content that they provide, especially a free service such as Twitter. You can't go into a movie theater and scream fire. It's pretty much the same thing here. You can't go, if these people whose accounts are being suspended said the exact same thing verbally in public, say at a mall, they would be arrested and charged. It's not free speech. It's harassment, what these accounts are doing.
Do you think what they're doing is illegal?
I think it borderlines illegal, yes, to a certain extent.
Is it up to Twitter to determine whether something is illegal or not?
I don't think Twitter is charging anybody.
Well,
I think Twitter is just saying that they are regulating the content of their services. Let's throw this into a real-life scenario. If you took all of these Twitter tweets that these accounts were doing and role-played them at a mall with random people, would the mall be allowed to expel these people from the premises?
Right, yeah, they'd kick you out.
Exactly. Twitter is just an online forum, privately owned, and therefore have their own rights to be allowed to regulate the content, just like the mall, if these people were doing the same thing, saying the same thing.
Right.
At the mall.
So what's your affiliation with the Russell League? I know they're an online trolling group. Can you explain what they are and how you got involved with them and how they feel about you?
Well, they don't like me.
Okay.
I got involved with them. Sorry. I got involved with them because I was defending somebody who they were harassing.
Mm-hmm.
And under several of those doc accounts that appear to be no longer active. And then they turned their attention to me, but they met their match with me because I fought back and now have docs for nearly the entire Russell League organization.
Are you the one who doxed Danny Dantalion?
I did indeed.
Okay. Now, there's been people out there who have accused you of being a federal informant. Obviously, if you were, you wouldn't be able to tell me. But why do you think people are saying this? Does it have anything to do with the personal history you have with the hacking community?
I honestly don't care if they think I'm an informant for the first part, but I think that it's just the go-to disrespectful thing to say to try to discredit somebody. When I was in jail and somebody wanted to discredit somebody, they would call that person a child molester because it's the go-to thing that everybody disrespects and everybody hates.
So you think you're being used as a scapegoat?
I think the term federal informant is being used as a scapegoat.
Well,
and everybody's using it without any legitimate justification for it.
Why were you originally put in jail?
For allegedly hacking into the University of Central Missouri and taking control of every one of their computers.
Okay, and then you already did your time for this, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I did 41 months and was sentenced to 36 months.
36 months. Okay, so yeah, why'd you end up getting out early?
I didn't get out early. I did 41 months, but was only sentenced to 36.
Oh,
so I actually served more time. I served more time than than I was sentenced.
Okay, I heard that the other way around. All right, now, Vincent Tachi, are you familiar with him?
I'm familiar with him.
All right, Vincent Tachi, he hosts a show on Blog Talk Radio. His real name's Vincent Tachi. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that. Some kind of Italian name. He had a similar story because he was working for PETA and ended up getting canned from PETA, and he had a login and password for one of their systems, but he ended up logging in after he got fired and took a few videos off their system, and he took some information from their network, and he was arrested on hacking charges as well. Well, he didn't end up doing any real hard time for this. But I just thought it was kind of odd that after his release, he hosted this show for a number of years that conveniently focused on Anonymous and the hacking community at large, when this doesn't appear to be something he ever had an interest in before. Do you think that he's a federal informant?
No. Again, the term federal informant is being thrown around like toilet paper on Halloween. It's a ridiculous accusation to make because federal informants, in my history, in my experience, with several of them on my own case, are not as proactive as these individuals. They are more, let's set up a situation where we can set somebody up for the arrest, a purchase of social security numbers or something like that. Engaging as much as these individuals are on Twitter, a federal informant wouldn't be able to do so, because all of that would come back at a trial and discredit the case against anybody who would be arrested as a result of the informant's information.
Well, I'm just looking at this, and I'm seeing the connection between Vince and Sabu. And Sabu, anonymous Sabu, was it Hector Monsegur? He actually was a federal informant, and that's been proven. And I'm just saying it's a little sketchy that Vince has had all this involvement with Sabu, and that's just coming out now. And I think it's a little sketch, you know?
Right. Well, people can turn into a federal informant and provide what's called a historical cooperation, which means that they can turn over everything that they've ever done as a result of their criminal activities.
Right.
That's what Sabu did. When he turned over everything that he did and provided historical cooperation, the feds asked him to go through and do a little bit more proactive cooperation, which is the second part of it. After they have an arrest, they do a proactive cooperation agreement, which means that the individual essentially becomes a federal agent. Now, Sabu was regulated and controlled entirely in his activities, which means that he wasn't committing any third-party crime that was unrelated to the Jeremy Hammond stuff. So he wasn't out there trolling, harassing other people,
right,
threatening other people. He couldn't. It would discredit the case against Jeremy. It would discredit him as a proactive and historical cooperator.
Right. Well, now, Vincent Bay, he's not gone after anybody like that either. And since he didn't really receive a harsh punishment, do you think it's possible that he was given some sort of leniency in exchange for service over time?
It's possible, but again, any agreement or cooperation agreement would have been had early on in the prosecution before he was sentenced. Because if his attorneys are smart, if he was going to cooperate, then they would have tried to get a lesser sentence as a result, or no sentence as a result of that cooperation.
Right.
So the fact that he did time shows that he's probably not an informant. Where's Sabu? He's not in jail yet. My co-defendant is not in jail because they cooperated and they're not going to do any time. The attorneys for cooperators know that it's best to keep the individual out of jail and try to get as much cooperation done to avoid jail entirely.
Right. All right, Joe. Well, I don't know. I think there's just been a lot of suspicious activities coming from Vince, and I'd be really leery of even going on his show, and I'm seeing all these anons coming out there, and it's just like with Agent 47, Larry Patterson. You know, he came out on Twitter and he started bragging about what he was doing, and then what do you know? Federal agents are able to put two and two together. I think regardless of whether or not Vincent Tachi is a federal informant, I think these people are foolish to go on his show and brag about their exploits on the internet, because not only are they putting themselves out there and admitting their crimes and their affiliation with these hacking groups, but they're also leaving themselves vulnerable to having their IP address exposed. You know, it's like a honeypot.
That's one of my biggest. That's one of the biggest things that I found when I was reviewing the Agent 47 material. Everybody knew the Agent 47 persona. It was just a matter of the feds finding one or two logins from his real IP address. Nobody online is being safe anymore. It's a disgusting world of people bragging and trying to take credit and claim for these exploits that eventually they're going to be arrested for because of their lack of security.
Right.
And then they're going to find somebody who they can try to call a federal informant as a result of the arrest.
And at one point, there was some safety in calling yourself anonymous, but now, if you're going to call yourself Anon47, you're not really anonymous, you're Anon47. You know,
right.
You still have an identity that can be traced back to you.
Exactly. And the feds will get the IP logs from Twitter. Hell, I could get the IP logs from Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy enough to do. And then you can compare the IP logs, look for anomalies in the login records. If you log in 5,000 times from Twitter, twice you probably logged in from a legitimate IP address.
Right.
And forgot to use your VPN, or you forgot to use the proxy tunnel. And it's only those 2 times that you need to make a mistake